my energetic beings. Welcome to Meet Me for Coffee. I am your host, holistic she medium and subtle energy surgeon, Tonya D. Thanks for joining me for coffee, tea, or whatever beverage is of your choice. But today's guest, I welcome Liv Wheeler. She's a Kontomble Voice Diviner and a ritual leader. She's dedicated her life to just reweaving the human experience with the sacred threads. For over the past 15 years, she's traveled, she's connected with people all over the world where spirit exists within all of those communities. As a Kontomble Voice Diviner, she divines with the little people from Burkina Faso. She's reignited the human awareness of that spirit realm across cultures and even landscapes. Her work's not only powerful, but it's also heart-centric, connecting with individuals and just different groups of people with the very real experience of a spiritual world that's very complex. It's even intricate, as different than we would experience in our everyday lives. She literally embodies the initiated feminine role of a priestess along with being a guide. Her work is, besides genuine, it's heartfelt, it's courageous, and it's uncompromising, teaching everyone who is open to it to experience the sacred with her. Her approach is with the utmost respect to treat not just the beings in the other worlds, but also treat our ancestors and our relatives in the realm of spirit with a different reverence and a dignity that they also always deserve. Ultimately, Liv is dedicated to restoring what is human to humanity in the embodiment of the heart, the dignity, also the courage, but most importantly, the humbleness that assists us in understanding that we are here to serve what is sacred ultimately. So just feeding these unseen beings in turn to it, that you may continue to also feed your own life. She's been guided by the Kontomble for a long time. She's also completed several tours, guiding people in different processes of healing and spiritual remembering. She's literally published her first book, which I have totally read, With the Love of the Ancients, My Spiritual Journey of Remembering, which I highly recommend that you read this to get into the flow of how Liv works and having an understanding of what you'll actually experience when you're working with her, to go into the world of spirit within the Kontomble. And she also produced a feature-length film, Remembering, which was filmed in Mongolia, which is a very curious moment for myself, as I was actually in Mongolia at the very same time. So these rivers of the threads of spirit always bring spirits together when in the space and in time is congruent. And she also recently has started the Kontomble Medicine School, the Earth's Amulet. And with all of that, welcome Liv Wheeler, Kontomble Voice Diviner, and absolutely so much more. Welcome, Liv.
Thank you so much, Tonya. It is an honor. It's an honor and a joy to join you. So thank you so much.
Ashe. So I just want you, can you share some insights with my audience? Just things that are resonating with you at the current moment in this Earth School.
Will you say just a little bit more so I make sure I catch your drift?
Just insights into what you're feeling and what you're sensing along the Earth, the planet, the Earth itself.
Yeah. Well, right before we got on the line together, I was starting to feel or to sense the like the wild or the primal feminine, I guess you could say, like the deep watery mystery, something like that. I was sensing that right before I got on the line with you. So I feel that is connected to our connection, or to your spirit also, and your connection to the natural world. And yeah, there's a lot that I'm chewing on these days. I'm always chewing on some things, but right now I'm chewing on a lot of different things because it feels like this time that we're in general on planet Earth right now. I mean, it feels like an initiatory experience for anybody anyway, you know. Additionally, I'm kind of like diving deep into the mystery, like diving deep into those waters and seeing if I can get a little bit deeper into the ocean and see what I can find. And, you know, finding these oysters and, you know, maybe there's a pearl inside. And so yeah, I've been continuously deep diving, and it seems like these times are understandably like very frightening for people, and a really, really, really important time to anybody, I feel like, to dive deeper into the ocean of their being to see what kind of oyster or the pearl that they find inside. I believe that none of us are here by accident. Now, especially, you know, none of us are here by accident. We didn't arrive here accidentally. And it feels, we were just talking right before we started recording, but I just only have realized in very, very recent, when I say recent, just maybe in the past month or two, that so many of the messages that I've received from the Kontomble recently or in ceremonies, these messages that they brought through, I had no idea that so much of it was in preparation, helping people to prepare for now, for this, you know, initiatory experience. And so, yeah, I feel spirit very strong when I connect with you. That's what I'm feeling right now.
It is like that. So I'm really good at futuring. Like I usually get bumps like 2 days ahead of time, like what's going to happen when that moment comes, kind of a thing. And I recently just went up the canyon, like I said, prior to where like we used to go camping. There was a crazy forest fire a few years back, and just the trees just felt naked because they'd been burnt to their bark. But there was an area, I specifically went up there trying to find certain branches and whatnot. But what was curious, because we found a beautiful river, and like I'm going to send you those pictures because they're amazing. But today when I was walking my dog previously, there was a branch laying in the tree, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's the branch that I went up the mountains to look for. But it just happened to be over here. So it like just appeared out of nowhere, this branch that I brought in the house. It was kind of a funny little deal.
Magic is strong with you, I sense.
Oh, it was hilarious. I was like, oh my gosh, I found the branch. And my girlfriend's staying with me right now, and she was like, where did you put the branch? I was like, I stuffed it in the car.
Us wild nature women.
It was, it's hilarious. Like, you cannot make this stuff up. Like, you can't. It's like, this is awesome. Oh, too funny. So I know you're changing some things. I'm curious about your Kontomble School, like along with I think the Earth's Amulet, but more of the Kontomble School. Can you kind of share a little bit about that?
The Kontomble, I'm laughing because in my work with the Kontomble, they always keep me guessing. That's why I'm laughing. You say, can you share more about them? I'm like, I don't know, can I? They always keep me guessing. They, where you might sense, some steps ahead, I feel some steps behind maybe the Kontomble. And it seems to work out in that way, that it feels like part of the deconditioning that they've been doing with me for years by now is it's removing, it's continuously excavating the part of my conditioning, the Western conditioning that wants to control every damn thing, every living thing. That we need to know everything, that we need to have control over and dominion over everything, that essentially life can't be trusted. So my journey with the Kontomble through the years has been difficult in a lot of ways, and it's been difficult in that I knew that I could, I was aware that I could, how do I say, like, placate the Westerner, because I'm conditioned with that, so I understand that, you know, and I chose not to. I chose to take their hand, or to receive their hand, and to go into the wilderness with them, and to trust them deeper and deeper and deeper degrees through the years. And so I laugh wildly for many reasons, and then I was laughing wildly because I was remembering when the Kontomble were, I'm used to by now that it's more often than not that the like assignments that the assignment could be going to Mongolia, it could be starting a school, it could be these different things. But more often than not, it only happens one time. It's not this is going to be a yearly thing. So this school, I had a sense this is happening now. And then in this school, what they were saying, it's funny because they were giving all this imagery at the beginning of like, we're going on a journey, and there was a lot of imagery about going onto a boat and going into the unknown, and the goddess is at the helm, and there are very watery waters, and it's going to be this particular kind of journey. I laugh wildly also because I had no idea that this journey into the unknown would be, you know, also have to do with like lockdown and things like that. You know, you're like, so we've been on this journey together, and it's they bring through messages. They've supported these women in understanding their unique medicine. Also, they bring through these earth reports, what they call, that is bringing through messages about the earth and all of that. And it seems, you know, what I noticed right before 2020 and in preparation for the school was that it seemed like they were getting particularly agitated about, if I'm just really honest, particularly agitated about like me. I mean, that me mentality. And it's like, we've got to, this is what they've been talking about for years, of supporting each other and, you know, supporting the greater and giving to the earth and giving to the other world and all of that. But it seemed that they were particularly agitated and just like, no more, those times are done, and that. And so the school was born. And then I had no idea it would be this kind of journey. Rough waters.
Right. Yeah, exactly. We're in total initiation, total transformation. And I've always just kept saying unity and community. We don't have unity and community. Mm-hmm. And people are kind of like, their idea of what things are versus the reality of it. And I'm like, I literally am watching from above the grid. And then I don't stay down very long because I'm happier up there anyway. It's just it's a whole nother realm for me, and I'm quite happy up there. And you know, it's just,
Tonya,
what's that?
What do you see from that perspective? I'm curious.
So I've seen a legion of beings along the cloud line that are just like waiting, but I'm also seeing timelines that are merging. Century-old timelines merging, and then they're going to hit a point, the 0 point, and then it's going to flip. So you're going to have a choice, right? Are you going to bump up or are you going to bump down? Right. Obviously, I'm going to bump up. Right. So are you, right? Right. But it's just opening the door so people, you know, a lot of people, when this is happening for them, they feel crazy. They feel like something's wrong with them. Right. And just to come into your heart, like I say to people all the time, well, what does your heart say? right? My heart won't lie to me. My mind will. It'll clutter me up, but my heart doesn't.
Right.
And then boundaries, like what do you feel and what are your boundaries? A lot of people don't have boundaries. The Western mind, you go with the flow.
Really?
So, it's getting in the river, getting a new course of action, whatever that looks like for you, and just validating your emotional field. And that's kind of what I see happening a lot is all these other little, I call them energetic hiccups and burpings. It's just what comes to mind for me. But it's like validate your emotions. Why do you feel sad? Like, is that from this timeline? Is that from another timeline? Is it in your ancestral line? Is it from another planet?
Right.
You have all these layerings that most people don't recognize that they're all part of that one. And then the other thing that makes me frazzle a little is we are all connected.
Yes.
So when somebody else is having discourse or adversity and I'm witnessing it, like, what do I need to do? So they're not alone. It's that unity and community. It's like where you're holding that space.
Yeah. So
they don't feel that way anymore. Or let them grieve and go through it, but they still know they have a container, right?
Yeah. And I appreciate your awareness too, that it's like I experience it similarly too, that there are so many things at work or at play in any given moment, especially right now. It's like, whoa, we just went into Atlantis. Where did we go? And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh my God, we're in World War II. What's happening? Past lifetimes, and also the different life or the different like generational spaces of what humanity has experienced on Earth right now, and it feels like it's all up for transmutation and reflection and learning and growth and everything. It's all just I feel like I never understood. I would hear people talk about timelines before this year, and I didn't exactly understand, but I hear people talk about timelines so much now, and I feel like I understand a little bit better now. And then I can kind of start to see them the way that the timelines move through space. And then it feels like also our emotional space, or the frequency that we choose and that we create a groove with, we get into the groove of a particular frequency, then it's like I'm choosing that. Like what you were saying, what are we choosing now? And it feels like there's a big, is it this or is it this? Because right now that's where I feel it. It's like it's here or it's here. And it feels like there's a split, this like tension is like here or here. Because it feels like this kind of thing that I feel it. I don't put it into words so much.
Well, I think it's hard to put it into words because really it's a whole nother language. And, the other world really doesn't speak English.
Right.
It speaks through symbols, right?
Right.
Usually symbolism or sounds, or feel like you can tell like when a child's angry or a dog or whatever, because they have an expression. They're
right.
So you kind of go into that. But so those, there's these, and besides the timelines, there's also those conscious river streams, right? So there's a stream that I play in lately. It's kind of blue, but it's also purple, but it looks more like a river. And I literally pulled out a stone out of the river in the thread and then placed it in an earth river. So it's like, besides this linear timeline, there's also this timeline. So there's so much like,
I'm with you.
Whoo.
Yeah, no, I'm following. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I'm following what you're saying. Have you always been connected in this way? I'm curious now. I'm like turning the mic over to you. I knew I would do that.
So like My story, like, I think I was like this before. I've always been into nature and like old school mountains, horses. Like, I grew up in a small town with a horse, but I was blessed with a near-death experience. And I was in a coma for a while, and I literally remember getting unplugged at 7 from that dimension. I remember when I came back into this world from that world, I know the beings I was with. There was like 11, but they were big. They were huge, but plus they were just big. They were, you'd maybe think they were giants, but I feel like they were ancient ones. That always resonates with me, the ancient ones.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, I had to learn to walk again, all this tragedy stuff, but I always looked at it as a blessing because it's like I went back to get the memo and to stay in that frequency. Mm-hmm. Where is what I'm really seeing reality, or is this another reality's reality? Mm-hmm. And then I started having, because I was, like I said, I was blessed. I was lucky. I grew up in a town. I had a horse. I could go in the mountains at will. And I would talk to animals telepathically. Wow. And have conversations with these beings to just help save them from man, basically. Mm. But I've also, like, I used to see like literal tears in the universe in between worlds. Mm. To where that's just kind of, I frequent there easily because I've done it for so long. It's kind of natural and normal for me. Mm. So I don't really share that a lot with people because it sounds like, oh, did you? And then I'll look around like, did you see that tear? Am I alone in the tear?
I'm following while you're talking. I can start to follow the energy.
Yeah. So So, and it's always what's in between. Like when I look through the tears, it's always, the color's always more vivid. It's more bright. It's just more crisp, and you just know there's magic in there, right? So yeah, that's kind of when it started. Like I said, I probably was like that before, but everything I think got more percolated and enhanced at that time and space for me.
I'm curious what you perceive in this time. I know we were kind of talking about this being an initiatory process, but what are you sensing in this time? I'm curious. I feel like we're turning into elves together. I'm like, are we elves right now? What is happening? God.
My thing is there's magic on the other side of fear. I think when people recognize that everything is false, which is affecting their emotional field, and then when they literally, that unity and community, and to come together, and that to recognize the magic there, like we have this within us, but we quit questioning, we quit being curious. Like, I have clients that live their whole life by going to the doctors, and they're not even sick people. But, they'll be taking the pill. It's like, well, do you need the pill? And then they end up having allergic reactions because they're on so many meds that they don't need in the first place. Yeah. But it's creating their body.
Yeah.
So, I've experienced a plethora of different things, but that seems to be curious to me. It's like, well, and that's again, it's like, well, what does your body say? Do you have a conversation with your body? Do you have a conversation with your heart?
Yeah.
Like, those are the things I do. Like, I'm always having those conversations. Plus, I have my yeah, I know. Yeah. I have a spirit guide. I can never
noticing. There's a lot of them.
But, yeah, exactly. So it's like, I'm like, sometimes if I'm going like this, it's because I'm getting this hit. It's like, okay, don't knock me over. I'm doing it. No. I'm going. So I just kind of always have that conversation. Like, is this real, or is it like I have to I'm always moving back and forth.
Well, I mean, I feel you very powerfully connected, and I know we were talking beforehand, and I was telling you that I was telling my friend, our friend Alan, how grateful I am to him for connecting us just recently, and I know that we have mutual friends, and that we both worked with Maladama. That you do currently work with Maladama, Elder Maladamas. I've noticed he's recently been called, but. So I think I just felt melodrama when I said that. Like all of a sudden I got distracted because I felt melodrama. But I know what I was going to say is that, yeah, so Alan connected us, and have been so grateful. We've done some spiritual work together. I guess we had connected on an online ceremony too, or we've connected in these different ways, kind of multi-dimensional ways, and we both, well, clearly work with the Otherworld and also with the Kontomble, but this I've perceived for a while, and I feel this 2020, this threshold space too, is that I don't know about you, but I've had the sense for quite a long time that the culture that we've been like indoctrinated into was going to crumble. It just seemed, I just had that inner knowing. I don't know how I knew that. I just knew that, right? Maybe so many of us just knew that. And simultaneously, it's just, I mean, I don't really, honestly, the deeper I go with spirit and the more I've traveled around the earth, I don't know how any quote unquote like society has existed pretending as if spirit is fictitious. How did that work? It didn't work. How do you know it didn't work? Because it's crumbling. How do we know it didn't work? Because it's crumbling. And did that maybe have something to do with the denial of the other world? Meanwhile, there's stories coming out of the shadows about some other kinds of things that were being worshipped that are pretty dark. But I won't talk about that right now. I won't go there. But anyway.
Yeah, don't open that can of worms, please.
Oh, we won't open that can of worms.
That's why I'm saying, like, centuries old, the conditioning, like, this has like been all those timelines merging is because it's like we're, our world has turned into like a weird kind of slavery to this chaos. And when you start waking up from it, like, and getting out of those threads, it's like you have wants and you have needs. Like, I'm not in, my thing is I'm not in competition, I'm in collaboration.
You are. I would totally agree. You are in collaboration. I feel that about you.
When people bring up that weird competition thing, for me, it's like a broken record, like scratching.
Yeah.
Because I think my sense is that collaboration. And we've kind of lost that in a lot of ways in this weird dictatorship. Even, I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole, but just even belief systems, and it's all shattering. Like I knew so much was going to shatter, because that's, you have to dismantle in order to rise above those ashes, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And even like the fires all over the world, like there's different messages in them. Like, yeah. So there was an experience I had for Australia where I had a friend there like she was like losing hope, right? So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, I can help you bring in a galactic storm to put the fires out, but I need an anchor. So I just kind of told her what to do with the water, and I needed these, I call them space coordinates, just so I know what's outside of that time-space dimension, so we could bring the rain in to put out those fires. But she was so grateful because like I opened the door to a different world and a different perspective to put out those fires. And I'm doing them with another person in California right now, but it's an anchoring, but it's a collaboration. You can't have your ego involved. Like this was like assistance that is, like you just said, spirit. Like, no one works alone.
Yeah.
You just don't. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was noticing that too. I mean, just yesterday, I think it was yesterday, I felt this with the natural world too, with nature, is that, I mean, we've been conditioned or indoctrinated into this whole belief of the whole like survival of the fittest, or this Darwinian or whatever exactly it is. But I mean, all one needs to do is go outside and observe nature. She's not competing. She's not competing, as far as I can tell. She's not competing. The bird comes and rests on the branch, and this comes and then receives the food from that, and the water comes and it nourishes the earth, or whatever exactly it is, or the rains come and that, and then, but what got in the way of that? What got in the way of that? Could it have been programmed like man, who was programmed by this Darwinian belief that all of a sudden we created a kink in the natural world? Like nature is so beautiful. Nature is glorious, and nature is so generous and in collaboration. And I was mentioning this to you before we started recording, but I could sense that about you immediately. It is not a given that when a woman connects with a woman, that she is able to be like with the other without going into, I do believe that's conditioning. I do believe that's conditioning. And I could sense that about you immediately. It's like, oh, she knows how to flow. We can flow together. And that I love your brilliance. I love your magic. Since we've been talking, I see you like morphing or shape shifting into so many different beings. There's like animals move through you, and there's these, priestesses and Earth Mother, all sorts of different beings moving through you. And
oh my gosh, that's hilarious. My friend we were out, and she was like, you just changed right in front of me. And I'm like, yeah, I do that. So it's awesome that you're noticing I do that as well.
You morph, you shape shift. There's so many different beings that morph through you. I'm like, whoa, it's from different cultures and timelines and animals and all sorts of things. It's awesome. You're super magical.
Oh, too funny. But so yeah, nature, like I love nature. I sleep outside all summer long. Just under the canopy of, like, I have a wall of trees that are literally a wall. And I have just like you said, I have conversations with these trees. Like this, I wake up every night as the moon is glazing over. Like I have this relationship with nature, and I have those conversations with nature, whether it's the river going by or the clouds, it doesn't matter what it is. And I've told people through this whole thing is to go out in nature, go sit in nature, because the frequency and the vibration of nature will literally, this, it'll totally shift your body and your frequency. Like get out of the city.
What do you think about this? I've heard this recently, and it does feel true to me that I've never understood things so much as like 3D, 4D, 5D, and so on. I feel, this dimension, and that goes into multidimensional space for me. But what do you think about this, that people have said that we're essentially like moving into a space of timelessness, that we're moving out of, whatever would be like Gregorian time and that, and it does feel very true to me, because I do experience more of the liquidity of time in what is considered like our day-to-day reality. And I was thinking about that as you were talking about that, because I was thinking about like the moons, and as we're going through this whole culture collapse, there's the whole like culture collapse, and then there's, inevitably like the flowers are cracking through the concrete. As the concrete is cracking, these flowers are cracking up. And I feel like people forget that we are we are creatives. We all are creatives. I feel like people forget and they think, oh, that person is an artist or that person is creative, but not me. We all have that creative capacity inside of us, and we all have the spark of the creator, the creatress inside of us. And so what are we like blowing, the creative spark into it? Is it all of a sudden we're honoring the moon cycles again and we're in like lunar time?
So yeah, we're tuning into the frequency we were literally born into. Yeah. It's about remembering who you are in the first place. Mm-hmm. And exactly, everyone has a creative spirit. And the reason there's so many different creative spirits is because it would be really boring if we all stared at a candle. That was our, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so boring.
Like, honor your spirit. Just let your creativity flow, or your talent, gift, whatever you want to call it. That's where that collaboration is. So like when I work with people, if there's like, I'll have visions of who anyone needs to work with, and I'm fine to send them there. Yeah. That's what a collaboration is.
Yeah.
Right? There's no ego involved. It's like, you know what? That's not my medicine. That's not my gift. That's theirs. So go on over here. So as far as the dimensions, that's where that 0 point's going to hit and going to twist. So some people...
What is the 0 point? I hear people talk about that. What is that, the 0 point?
It literally is, it looks like a dot to me. Where all these timelines are like merging, like a bunch of yarn, like a cable hits this point, and then it literally twists, and then there'll be people who stay in the 3D and people who bump into the 5D. So it's kind of it'll feel awkward because again, we've been conditioned. So get out of what's familiar, climb into the unfamiliar. There's magic in that unfamiliarity.
Yeah.
Like even today when I saw the stick, like most people wouldn't have even noticed the stick. But I'm like, yes, a stick. Like, you can't make this stuff up. It's hilarious. So yeah, there's going to be where people literally, it's like getting new skin, like just peeling off the stuff that really doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you go on this, same thing. There's people who are travelers and there's people that are tourists.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? And the people I find that are having a hard time with this are the people who travel to places to say they've been there, but they literally haven't jumped into the culture to experience. Right. And they're not in control of what they can and can't do. So this is a struggle for them where I can go in my backyard, I can go anywhere and be in nature and have traveled somewhere. I don't need to physically get on an airplane.
Totally, yeah, because you like go through the different dimensional spaces too. Well, I don't know if that's what your experience is, but that's what I experienced. And that's what I was thinking recently too, feeling nature is so multidimensional already.
It's a magical place to be, just to sit and be in that. And it will literally realign all of your beingness when you sit in it and just get in the flow of it. And animals are magical, whether it's an ant, which I had great conversation with some ants recently, a squirrel.
Yeah. There's so much to learn from nature. When I was in, I was essentially in like lockdown in Spain for a while before I returned, but and where I was, like I really didn't get to touch the earth. And so since I've been here now, I've been having a morning practice of going and making offerings to the earth and connecting with the sunrise and saying thank you for the day and, talking to the earth and everything and putting my bare feet on the earth each morning. And I'll tune in, I'll ask the Kontomble, or I'll ask, what can I offer to the earth? And sometimes the earth is just saying, just come here, like, just be with me, And so I go, and then the sunrise happens, and I don't know if it's because I hadn't touched the earth in a while, but whoa, is it feeling profound. I mean, the sunrise and feeling the earth coming up through my feet and everything, the energy that I'm feeling, it feels so profound. And then I look to the trees and I connect with the trees, or I'll touch the branch and I'll greet. And I'll say, like, basically, I'm here as your student, essentially.
Yeah, Earth School. Earth School. It's the never-ending. It's the never-ending village.
Exactly. Yes, it's the never. Yeah, it's never ending. It's the never-ending school. Yeah, I mean the honor to be able to like be with Earth for a while. I mean, I think you and I have similar understandings or awareness or beliefs about, I mean, one can exist on so many different planets and spaces and places and that, and it is an honor. It's an honor to be here with Mother Earth in this time.
Yeah, well, and exactly what you said. Everyone who's here right now was, you came in for a purpose, whether you are open or recognize it or not. That's why so many people are, questioning, is this real? Like, why do I feel this way? And, you just kind of have to hiccup or burp them along to where they can literally start in the flow and the frequency, right?
Yeah.
Just like, because I'll recognize triggers from other people of what's happening or not happening.
Right.
To get them going on their way. But I come from a place of no judgment, like, because it's not my story.
Yeah.
And I have my assistant, she says, she goes, you are so patient. Do you ever get mad? And I'm like, well, sometimes.
Just for a different experience.
Like,
have experience of being mad.
Yeah, literally, because she'll have little triggers, and I'm like, well, where's this come from?
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. Will you say more?
So yeah, trigger, like usually if you have, I call it an energetic hiccup, but a trigger, whatever it is, that's either an experience that you've had happen, and it's not a good experience generally, but you kind of have to like move through the frequency of the feeling and shift the feeling to where you don't bring that experience back into your portal self, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can like, okay, you're right, that did happen, but I'm done. It's not going to happen again. Mm-hmm. So, for example, she's had some hiccups with some stuff on the internet, and I'm like, oh, it's all right, because I always know things will figure itself out, right? Mm-hmm. And she's like, but she just kept kind of pushing on it, and I was like, what you resist persists. It'll keep coming until you just go with the flow of it. So she again, she's like, why do I always doubt myself? And I said, well, who in your life doubted you? I said, I have never doubted you. Mm. And then she was like, she had her own little aha wake up, right? So she moved through it. She's good now. But triggers, there's all kinds of triggers.
And if I know, it's interesting because I was thinking, I've been thinking about triggers a lot, probably through the years, not just recently, but I mean, it's interesting. It's like, and I remembered, I know I talked about this in the book, but when I first heard about Maladama, I was in this shamanic training, and then I remembered later the teacher that I was working with and what she had said at that time when she mentioned his book or one of his books of Water in the Spirit. She was saying that in his village, in the Dagara village, like when they go through initiation, that like it's not a given that everybody's going to make it through the initiation, which they might like not actually, well, I don't know if they still are doing initiations like that in Dano, but they might not, at that time, they might not actually make it out alive. But what she was saying about it at the time is this is a way to like ascertain each person's like being accountable or responsible for their being like, and that's common in indigenous cultures, that there's a rite of passage, that there's an initiatory like process around that age, like 12, 13, something like that. And then what did we miss out on in this culture by not having gone through those, by that not having been built into our cultural understanding, and this kind of, in a sense, like foreign to the organic being, that it's like, let's say the child doesn't know anything, it's just the adult who knows, or when you go to school, you don't know anything and it's just the teacher that knows or something, and it's this really, really, really disempowered space. This person knows and these people do not know. And if you're lucky, you're going to get to that point, you know? But that's not of the natural world. And so that, of course, had to crumble, which is in the process of crumbling in that. But it's like just the understanding that we are accountable, responsible for our energy, that it's not. And I remember this too. I remember when I was in a relationship at one point, before I had awareness of these things, and he was trying to bring awareness to my shadow, and I was like in fierce denial that I had a shadow. It was too painful to feel, to be in the shame of the experience. There was too much shame there. It was like just the idea that I could even say I have a shadow. It felt like it could crush me or annihilate me or something. I was in denial of what energy I was. And we both were, we both were. We all are. We all do. And that's the thing, is just like, how do we, not you and I, but just kind of like, that's something I'm chewing on in some things that have happened recently, that it's like, this is doing these ancient practices that are natural to my being in a modern context, and in a context where people aren't having any awareness of that, or working with triggers. And there's a reason, I think, why it's called a trigger too, because the trigger can also be, it's like, boom, the trigger is also that. Why is it called a trigger? Because it feels like that. It's like, if somebody's not used to working with that.
Yeah, I think just the awareness of like, oh, you're triggered. And it's not comfortable. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's uncomfortable
to have triggers. So yeah, usually if I've learned how to just work through the trigger.
Yeah.
And to be aware of when other people are triggered.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, and separating, going in and figuring out where the trigger started. And having, so sometimes I'll tell people to have a conversation with your 3-year-old self.
Right.
What does your 3-year-old self want?
Yeah.
Well, my 3-year-old self might want a Fat Boy ice cream bar.
Yeah.
So I need to feed that aspect of my inner child.
Yeah.
And that's like a feeling, that's where people aren't really in touch with their feelings. They get worried about tripping over somebody else's feelings because they don't want to hurt their feelings.
Right.
But an aspect, you're hurting yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, there's a bunch of different triggers. Even like, say you get fired from your job. That's a trigger, but if you look at it with new eyes, maybe the universe is moving you. Little beings are moving you to where the place you're supposed to be. It just appears like being fired in this world, but in actuality, you weren't on your life path anyway. So you got fired.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, I feel like it's really important what you're saying too, is like perspective. To me, like perspective is everything. Perspective is everything, because even you were talking earlier and how you have this like kind of, you didn't say it in that way, but this like bird's eye view. Perspective is everything, because like what you were saying, say you got fired from your job, and it could be this kind of situation, but then if you're able to experience it in a new way, then all of a sudden you're like, oh yeah, but then, oh yeah, I forgot I hated it. I forgot that every day I was saying I hated it, and I hated how I was looked down upon or whatever. It felt every day like I was getting squeezed. That's what I've been aware of, for years now, that I've heard people say that, and it's sad. And I've had that experience too when I was working a profession when I was in my early 20s, that to have that feeling or that sense that you're doing something that's contrary to your soul or contrary to, and it's something that's like squeezing your life force, or like somehow, but we've been like indoctrinated into that belief that, but I've just gotta find my way to like get into those grooves, because that's just what you do here. This is just how we do things here. But aren't we creatives? And so what else is possible?
It's the universe moving. That's usually what
Yeah.
Oh no, you're not on path. Even like you said, initiation, like kids going through initiation.
Yeah.
It's kind of like what I call climbing into your skin. Right? Being who you are and being recognized for your gifts and your talents. And even if they're not the same as somebody else, you still have your own light. You still have your own shimmer, your fairy dust. Go play with it, right?
Yeah. We get to play.
Like, know your magic. That's what I'm like.
We get to play here, Tonya.
Yeah, triggers. I think the world has been, besides initiated, they're being triggered. But that's when, triggers are there to literally wake you up to who you're meant to be. You're not going to like it. It's not going to be comfortable. Yeah. But on the other side of it, there's magic, and that's where you're heading, right?
Yeah. This is something I've realized too, that I'm guessing you've experienced this too, right? Because you were talking about the coma and everything, and I think sometimes people don't realize this about the spiritual path, particularly the ways that we've been conditioned as Westerners, that we don't understand this necessarily about the spiritual path, is that we do work for it. You know what I mean? Like we do effort, we do like sweat and whatever, and you can be laughing through it and go into hysterics and everything, and we do effort for it. We might have forgotten because those efforts happened in previous incarnations, when you're like the monk in the cave for, 2 years or something like that, and that enabled you a certain awareness or something like that. I have an easier time these days connecting with people who, or I have for a while, connecting with people who have like been raised with ceremony in certain ways, or like traditional in certain ways, and have that understanding already about like ceremony and ritual, is that it's not necessarily that you're just sitting in a room, in an air-conditioned room with a frame drum, like the sheltered shamanism or something like that word came to me.
Right? You got your pen and your paper and your notepad, and you're going to take notes and take a test.
Yeah, it's like, it's all, respect, to however people, like, how, whatever their calling is how they arrive, or they're, continuing to study or learn. But that's not the only way, and that's not necessarily the way, like, as I've experienced it, like, ritual can be like sweaty and gritty, and you might have some like dirt on your face, and like whose idea was this? Why did I decide to do this? Why am I in the jungle fasting for 3 days? What the hell? Or that would 2 weeks. What the hell was I thinking?
That is so true. Like Like, oh, so many times I'm like, well, I'm in it. Can't get out of it now.
I'm like, I seriously, and then it doesn't even make sense necessarily sometimes until like the end, and then you come out and you're like, you know, the sun is shining through you, and feel like, wow, you're like radiant. You just like went through it, you know. You like, but and then meanwhile, like previous incarnations and things are getting like burned through or churned through that in the digestion and everything of what's being moved through the system. And these beings of nature, these spiritual relatives or the beings of nature, these spirits, you know, come through and do their doctoring. That is amazing. It's really amazing.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously I love all of that stuff. Like even, like herbs, like I work with different things based on, you know, what I'm shown for the person. Whether it's herbs, essential oils, I work with light, I work with sound. I send them to the mountains sometimes. And I'll even ask them, you didn't do what I said, did you? Because it's a prescription, right? It's like you've come back with the same conundrum that you had 6 months ago. Did you go to the river? No. Okay. How did you expect anything to change if you weren't going to sit there for 24 hours?
Yeah.
You still have to do the work.
Yes.
Don't get mad at the messenger.
Yeah. And that's what I've heard the spirits say through the years too. Not only the Kontomble, but the different spirits. I do hear them say that a lot. Like they need us to meet them. Like they'll bring through the prescriptions and that, but they need us to show up and to do that. And that's where change happens. That's where I see. Well, obviously, it's not the only place, but it's a big place where change can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, and no, you cannot like wait 5 years and then all of a sudden do all those prescriptions all at once to make up for the 5 years you didn't do it. Then we got to start all over. Help me. Oh, too funny. So, is there anything else you'd like to share with my audience?
I love you. The Kontomble I send love.
I know, right? The fire world.
Yeah, it's good to connect.
Absolutely. So exciting. I can't wait. We'll connect again, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll definitely connect again.
Okay, so thanks for hopping on for Meet Me for Coffee. I'm going to have all the links in the show notes. And with that said, Ashe.
Ashe.